right, welcome back to the channel, everyone. Hopefully you guys are having a great rest of your day, start to your day, whatever time it may be. And in this video, we are gonna be going over whether or not it is worth it to buy a 2016 to 2020 Shelby GT350 or GT350R Mustang. Obviously, there's those rare 2015 cars, but if you're interested, if you're in the market for a 2016 to 2020 Shelby GT350 in 2025, hopefully this video is going to be helping you out. If you guys enjoyed the content on the channel, feel free, drop a like on the vid, subscribe to the channel, turn on those post notifications to stay up to date with Shelby GT350 as well as Mustang GT content. Let's get into it. All right, let's go ahead and get a little cold start. It looks like it rained last night, which is pretty unfortunate because that was not on the forecast. Bipolar Texas weather. It is what it is. Hopefully there is gonna be a spot that I can go to that isn't completely washed out. A couple spots in mind. 3, 2, 1. Good old E85 cold start. Car warm up, we'll hit the streets and we'll pull up to a spot. All right, we are on the road and it sure as heck did rain. I was not expecting this today. That bipolar Houston weather, let me tell you, I was not expecting this today. Hopefully there's a spot that isn't washed out that I can go ahead and park up for a little bit to go over the car, go over some things you should be looking out for if you are thinking about buying a Shelby GT350. You got a C7 Stingray. Oh, another one. Another C7 Stingray. Little wet weather is not stopping people from coming out. Love to see it. Houston fashion. But even with the Procharger on, making 800 horsepower, super smooth to drive, super easy to drive. That's why I went with the Procharger, because if you don't want it into boost, you can just drive it regularly outside of boost and it feels 100% like stock. You wouldn't even know. The blow-off valve doesn't really open up until like 3,000, so it literally sounds like stock 2 cruising, which is really, really convenient. Then obviously when you start the downshift, you can start to hear it, but super easy to drive. Hopefully there's a spot that is not rained out, but we shall see in a little bit, y'all. We shall see in a little bit.
One eternity later.
All right, finally found a decent spot. As you guys can see, this is my 2016 Shelby GT350. It is far from stock. It is far from a garage clean. I drive this car, I race this car, I drive it how it's intended. So I feel like I'm the perfect person to talk to you guys about Shelby GT350 ownership. Now, under the engine bay, it is dirty, but at the same time, I live in Texas and we have some crazy bipolar weather. It's dry one day, 80, and then raining and like 50 the next day. So it is what it is, but I have a D1SC Procharger on my Shelby GT350. This is on an 8-pound pulley. I have ID 1050X injectors. I have a Lethal Performance twin booster pump. In the back of the car, this car does have stainless works long tube headers. Hopefully you guys can see down there, stainless works long tube headers. I have a UPR catch can, which I will most likely be upgrading to a revised catch can very, very shortly. As far as the motor goes, it does have oil pump gears, it has crank sprocket, and that's pretty much it for the modifications. This car makes, I'd say, high 700, low 800 wheel horsepower, judging off of the draggy 60 to 130 times, which I will go ahead and showcase in this video right now for you guys, if you were wondering what an 800 horsepower-ish Shelby GT350 can do. Now walking around the exterior, I have some different wheels on the car. I have some Weld Belmonts. These are 20 by 5. This is a 255 35/20 inch tire in the front to clear the big brakes. And for the rear, same wheels, Weld Belmonts, non-beat locks, and these are a 305 40/18, which I don't recommend these tires because they do not hook. I will be switching to the Mickey Thompson ET Street SS's. Same tire size. And as far as exhaust goes, it is going to be the Ford Performance X Borla exhaust with the Ford Performance X pipe with the stainless works long tube headers, 1 7/8 catless. And that's going to be the setup on the car. Stock ride height, because it needs to be stock ride height to clear the 305 40 18-inch tires. And I love the car, man. I love it. It has exceeded my expectations. I loved it bone stock. I loved it full bolt-on E85. I loved it supercharged 93, and I love it even more supercharged on E85. It is an absolute animal. Now, enough about my car. Let's talk about what you should be looking for if you yourself are planning on picking up a Shelby GT350 or GT350R here in 2025. I think you should do it, and I hope you can accomplish your dreams. Now, the first thing you're going to want to go ahead and do if you are in the market for a Shelby GT350 or GT350R is determining your budget. If you are looking at a 2016 through 2018 Shelby GT350, you are going to have to spend anywhere between high $40,000 to mid $50,000. Now, if you're looking for a 19 through 20 Shelby GT350 or GT350R, you are going to have to spend anywhere between high 50s to low 70s, potentially mid $70,000. And the reason being is because of the different motors. The 16 through 18 have the Gen 1 Voodoo. The 19 through 20 have the Gen 2 Voodoo. Now, the 19 through 20s also have different suspension tuning and minor exterior modifications, but those really aren't that big of a deal. The main reason are going to be the motor. Now, the Gen 1 Voodoo, some of them have the tendency of having oil consumption. In my personal opinion, that has a lot to do with how the owner is treating the vehicle, which I will be going over the proper treatment that you're gonna have to treat both Gen 1 and Gen 2 Voodoos in this video as well. The Gen 2 has less likelihood of having oil consumption issues, and it also is going to have a couple of other revised changes that I will be going over in this video as well. So depending on your needs and your peace of mind, you're going to have to budget accordingly to get the Shelby GT350 that is going to be right for you. Now, regardless if it is a Gen 1 or a Gen 2 Shelby GT350, I always recommend people to go after a vehicle that has 10 to 15,000 miles on it. Now, buying the lowest mile Shelby GT350 isn't always the best option, because you want to make sure that whoever had it before you was maintaining it properly. So you want to have service records. That's very, very important when buying a vehicle like this. And also, because of the type of engine it is a race motor stated by Ford. You want to make sure that the car has at least 1 or 2 oil change intervals on it, because these cars are not brand new anymore. They're not brand new. They're almost 10 years old, which is kind of crazy to think about. These are almost 10 years old, guys, which is crazy. You for 2016. You want to make sure that whoever had it has changed the oil, because it is not a good idea to buy a car that you intend on driving. And enjoying. If you're gonna buy it and just park it, it don't really matter, because it's not really gonna be moved. But if you're intending on buying it and enjoying it, like most of us, you don't want to have a car that has never had an oil change that's almost 10 years old. It's just not a good idea. That is a recipe for bad things to happen. So keep that in mind when you are looking for a Shelby GT350. There are plenty on the market right now that have between 10 to 15,000 miles, Gen 1, Gen 2 Voodoos that have oil change intervals, service intervals, so you know exactly how the car was treated, because you don't want to buy a car that has low miles on it that you don't know how it was treated. Yeah, it has low miles, but you know, the person could have been beating on it, you know, for the, well, let's say 5,000 miles they had, and they never changed the oil, which is definitely not a good thing. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the maintenance intervals and how you should be treating and handling your Shelby GT350, whether it is bone stock, full bolt-on E85, minor bolt-ons, or supercharged. I got all the information for you in this video. Now, I forgot to mention this while I was outside recording the video, but it's very important to make note. I bought my 2016 Shelby GT350 track pack with 10,500 miles on it. 2 years later, I am pushing 30,000 miles on the original Gen 1 motor. So that's roughly 10,000 miles per year. After I bought the car, I'd say 2,000 miles after I did purchase it, I did go full bolt-on E85, which is going to be entailing long tube headers, cold air intake, as well as an E85 tune. The intake manifold is pretty pointless to go ahead and replace, so that's something you don't have to do technically to go full bolt-on E85. Now, I was full bolt-on E85 all the way up to roughly 24,000 miles on the vehicle. Once I hit 24,000 miles, I did install the D1SC Procharger Stage 2 kit, and I've been supercharged ever since. So I wanted to let you guys know the mileage that I had on the car when I purchased it, the mileage I have on it right now, and the markers when I did modifications, just in case you were wondering when's a good time or a bad time to do modifications to your Shelby GT350. In all reality, it's never a bad time, but I want to go ahead and let you guys know, because I know some people are really finicky on if they should modify a Shelby GT350 that has over, let's say, 20,000 miles on it, as crazy as that sounds. Now, I service my Shelby GT350 quite frequently, admittedly more frequent than your average owner, and that's because I go off of what the motor is telling me. I do not care what the oil life reset says in the car. I go off what the motor is telling me, and I also go off the oil change schedule that I adopted when I first bought this vehicle. Now, I change the oil in my Shelby GT350 every 2,000 to 2,500 miles. I did this when it was stock. I did this when it was full bolt-on E85. I did this when it was supercharged on 93, and now I am doing this when it is supercharged on E85. The reason I do this is because I want to make sure that the car has fresh oil at all times, so there is a less likelihood of the engine developing oil consumption. This is very important that you are getting on top of your oil change intervals. This is not a 5.0. This is a car that you are definitely going to have to treat differently, and you don't want to be cheaping out on oil changes. Now, I changed the oil in my Shelby GT350 with Amsoil 5W50 full synthetic, and I also use the OEM Ford Shelby GT350 oil filter. I do have a 2016 Gen 1 Shelby GT350, so I do have on the spin-on filter, and it is incredibly important that you are using an OEM filter and you are torquing it down to 18 foot-pounds of torque, because if you don't, it will spin off Ask me how I know. So make sure you are looking into this before you are picking up a Shelby GT350. If it has the regular spin-on filter, if it has the cartridge style, if it's a Gen 1, Gen 2, it doesn't matter. You want to make sure that you are changing your oil in a way that you're going to be staying on top of the maintenance and preventing, hopefully, anything from happening. And that's going to be really, really important. I feel like a lot of people don't do that for whatever reason. Now, I also want to make note the proper warm-up procedure you should be following when you are picking up a Shelby GT350 or Shelby GT350R. It doesn't matter if it's a Gen 1 Voodoo or a Gen 2 Voodoo. You must do this. Now, when you first turn on your vehicle, personally, I like to let the oil temperature get to 120 degrees before I actually start driving the car. Now, once it does get to 120 degrees, you do not want to take the vehicle over 3,000 RPM until you get to roughly 190 degrees oil temperature. This is very important to do so because this is a high revving motor. So you want to make sure the oil is up to temp and the motor is properly lubricated. This is going to be imperative in making sure that your car is going to last long, especially if you are planning on driving it and honestly driving it hard. We all know whenever you are buying a car like this, you want to go ahead and let it sing. So it's very important that you are warming up the car properly and you're getting the oil temp to the proper temperature before you're letting it loose. Do not forget to do this because this is how a lot of owners, when these cars first released, were damaging the engines because they were turning them on and immediately going crazy. You cannot do that. Make sure the car is 120 degrees before you start moving, and make sure the car is 190 degrees oil temperature wise before you start taking it over 3,000 RPM. With a car like this, you have to be careful and you have to take special precautions. It's just the way it is. Now, it could be excessive to change it every 2,000 to 2,500 miles, but again, that's just something that I personally have been doing since I bought this car almost 2 years ago. So I'm just going to keep going ahead and doing it. And that's exactly why I recommend going ahead and trying to find a car that has 10 to 15,000 miles on it, because you want to know exactly what the previous owner was doing with their vehicle. You want to make sure that they're on top of maintenance, specifically oil changes, and obviously going ahead and taking care of the car, you know, the best of their ability and honestly how it should be taken care of. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the outside of the car again, because there's going to be some parts of Shelby GT350s, doesn't matter what year, that you're going to have to go ahead and take a look at when you are looking for the one that is right for you. Now, on all S550 Mustangs, unfortunately, you are going to have to deal with this kind of front bumper like tag gap right here. This happens when the clips break. It's just something that is going to eventually happen. If you have to take the front bumper off for whatever reason, you can just push it back in there. You can get the, you know, the pins to go ahead and have it attached. Personally, I don't want to go ahead and get pins on my front bumper. I'm just going to try to get it repaired without having to use pins. But you are going to have to take a look at this when you are looking for a Shelby GT350, because it can happen on any year, unfortunately. It's just going to happen if you have to take the front bumper off for whatever reason. So make sure you guys look at that. It can happen on both sides. It's happened on both sides of my car, as you guys can see here. Yeah, it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? I drive the car, so I can't really get, you know, too upset about that. Now, toward the rear end, these cars also have a tendency to have the rear bumper sag. Now, mine was way worse until I actually went ahead and got it repaired. How I got it repaired was, ironically, as I just took the front bumper off, or the rear bumper off, and then put it back on. That's how it was repaired, using the same hardware. Now, you can get hardware from the 2019 through 2020s because they did go ahead and fix this issue significantly in the 2019 to 2020s. So if you are buying a Gen 1 2016 to 2018 and you have like the rear sag, get hardware from a 2019 through 2020, take off your bumper and put it on with the 2019 to 2020 hardware. It can go ahead and fix that issue. So keep that in mind if you are looking for one. If it checks off all the boxes but it has that sag, there is a way, luckily, to go ahead and get that fixed up. So that's a massive W in my personal opinion. As you guys can see here, It was kind of put back on, and this was done well over a year ago. So this is the interior of my Shelby GT350. It is a 2016 track pack. That's why I have the little calculator screen. But in all reality, you know, I bought my Shelby GT350 to drive, to enjoy. I didn't buy it to listen to music. In all reality, the music is the 5.2 liter flat plane crank, so it's not a big deal. You actually can go ahead and upgrade this. There is the 2019 through 20 head unit, and it also does come with the Apple CarPlay you can add on it as well. So it's going to look like factory. It is a factory component, just upgraded, and that's going to be about 1,900 bucks. I personally just don't care to spend 1,900 bucks to go ahead and have the bigger screen when I can spend that money on, you know, performance and maintenance on the vehicle. So that's kind of why I haven't done it yet. But as far as the interior, this is what I have. I have the Recaro seats. I do have a rear seat delete because I just did my twin booster pump, so that's kind of why I don't have the rear seats in the car. But as far as everything else, it is stock. I do have a carbon fiber steering wheel, as you probably saw in the POV Drive part of the video. I do have a Billet Works weighted shift knob, and I do have the Ford Performance short throw shifter, which is quite nice on this vehicle. Really nice, really notchy, and it goes in the gear very, very, very easily, and I'm really happy about that. This car does have the stock clutch. It is not the original clutch that I did have when I first bought the car. This is another stock clutch that I got for free after selling the Bluetooth cats from the stock manifolds, but got lucky on that. But that's going to be the interior. Standard S550 interior. Can't go wrong. Easy to navigate, and I think it looks quite good. I think it looks quite good. Now, 2016 track pack Shelby GT350. The reason why I went with the 16 track pack, because there actually was a 16 tech pack, which does come with the bigger screen, hence the tech pack. I wanted to make sure that I had the oil cooler, the trans cooler, and the diff cooler, which actually doesn't come on the tech pack. 2017s, they all come with the oil cooler, trans cooler, and the diff cooler. So if you're looking at a 2016, I highly recommend going ahead and getting one that has the track pack, that has the oil cooler, trans cooler, diff cooler. And if you absolutely need the big screen, go ahead and add that in. Aftermarket, well, technically it is a Ford unit, but you have to buy it, you know, from a different website, not Ford. It actually is going to be cheaper to do it that way, because obviously buying the oil cooler, the trans cooler, the diff cooler, getting it all installed, if you're not doing it yourself, even just buying all the parts separately, it's going to cost more than 1,900 bucks. So it makes sense to go ahead and buy the track pack and then just go ahead and add the big screen, which, you know, I might go ahead and do down the line, who knows. But you know, there's way more important things to buy for 1,900 bucks, in my personal opinion. I mean, the radio, it works, so it's not really a huge priority for me right now. But that's gonna be pretty much the reasoning behind why I went with the 2016 track pack. I bought this car for $50,000 almost 2 years ago, bone stock, and it has evolved into what it is today, which I'm really proud of, and it checks off all my boxes, and it runs exactly what it should run. So that's something that I'm super happy with. And I know for a fact, if you guys are looking for a Shelby GT350 and you wanted to keep it stock, because I was going to keep my car stock for a while. I kept it stock for about a month, and then I went full bolt on E85. I was fully satisfied stock. It's just that, you know, I live in Texas and well, you can't really get caught lacking with the stock car out here. You just can't. So I went full bolt on E85, and then about a year and 6 months later, I had the Procharger D1SC head unit, and then 2 weeks ago went E85, and that's where we are right now, y'all. That is where we are right now. Now, the big question, do I think it's worth buying a Shelby GT350 or GT350R here in 2025? Absolutely, absolutely, 110%. This was my first S550 Mustang that I've owned. Man, it's crazy. So I went from a new edge, I went from a 99 to 04 Mustang straight to a Shelby GT350, because I knew this was going to be the S550 that was going to suit all my needs and was going to feel like home. And I'm so glad I went ahead and picked this car up because it is an absolute blast to drive. You will not be disappointed, especially if you come from an older Mustang, or if you already have an S550 and thinking about getting into a Shelby GT350, you will 100% be satisfied. I can guarantee you that. Now, to wrap things up, because I know this question is going to be asked in the comment section, which is valid. Do I have oil consumption because I have a Gen 1 Voodoo and a 2016 Shelby GT350? This is the original engine that came with this car in 2016. The answer to that question is luckily no. Knock on the plastic in the interior. From the moment I bought this car, I was monitoring the oil levels like a hawk. That is exactly why I change the oil every 2,000 to 2,500 miles. Now, I haven't noticed any oil consumption when I bought it stock. I didn't notice any when I was full bolt on E85. I didn't notice any when I was supercharged on 93, and I also didn't notice any when I am supercharged on E85, because I check my oil like every time I go out and do watt pulls. If the car sees 8,300 RPM the next day before I go ahead and turn it on, I make sure to check the oil, and I have not noticed any oil consumption. The max oil consumption that I have seen is the car get about 3/4 of a quart low, but that was after beating on it heavily with an oil pan gasket leak and around 2,000 miles. So that is exactly why I changed my oil every 2,000 to 2,500 miles, just based off of the experiences I've had with this car and to make sure the motor is happy. And that's also why I recommend you guys going ahead and adopting an oil change interval schedule depending on what the motor is telling you guys. And honestly, changing it every 2,000 to 2,500 miles, you can't go wrong with that. That's making sure that you're having fresh lubricant, and considering the fact that this is a high revving motor, it's very important that that is done. Super important that that is done. So if you made it this far into the video, I hope you accomplish your goal in 2025 and buy your own Shelby GT350 Mustang. If you guys enjoyed the video, feel free, drop a like on the vid, subscribe to the channel, turn on those post notifications to stay up to date with all of the content. I will be releasing a video very shortly on the pros and cons of supercharging or boosting your Shelby GT350 in general versus saving up and buying a Shelby GT500. I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. Deuces.